Today's Sunday, but I want to go to the studio on the campus where I work because I have something that I want to show and share with you. Last summer I made a video before I started doing the 30-day videos about the new broadcast set that I built in the studio at work. Today though, I wanted to run through and actually show you how that all works and how that all gets put together. Because this summer I spent a big chunk of time building a new broadcast set, but last winter break is when we moved into the new studio and it was just totally empty, and so I had to spend my whole winter break actually setting up all the technical parts. Now, I spend a lot of time talking about my broadcast class because it's the most visible thing that I do. It's really only about 10% of my overall job, but since it's a live daily broadcast, it's the thing that people see the most and I get the most feedback on. So even though it's not the biggest part of my job, it's the most outward-facing part of my job. Now, our school operates on this somewhat unusual bell schedule where students all have 8 class periods, but they only go to 4 class periods each day. So that means teachers only see half of our students on any given day. We do a live broadcast every single day, but I only have 1 broadcast class. What that means is on the days when I have my broadcast class, I give the students directives and objectives to complete and advise them as necessary, but it is a 100% student-run broadcast. They revise the script, they set up the studio, they handle all the technical aspects. It's a student production. On the days when I don't have the broadcast class, then I have to be the one that sets everything up so that way it's ready to go. When it's time to do the broadcast, students, even though they're not in my class, come in, do it without even rehearsing it once, and then go back to their classes. So it's important that everything is set up and ready to go. So I'll run you through that whole process now. The first step is my second least favorite part of setting up a broadcast, and that's dealing with the script. And the reason it's my least favorite is just because it's kind of dull and boring. The main stuff on the broadcast is school information and announcements, and so those get sent in, I go through them and just add them to our script. Our script is kept on Google Docs, so that way students all have access to it at all times, especially on those days when they don't have broadcast. Hopefully read their script in the morning before they come into the broadcast class. It depends how many announcements are sent in, what we do on the show that day. If there's a whole bunch, then that's kind of it. We just get that information out to everyone because that's our main objective. But if it's a short day, that means we have time to then add in like a live sketch or a pre-recorded package, or do something to add a little more interest to it. And that's the best part of the broadcast, is when we get to do fun, different things and try new stuff, which sometimes works great and sometimes fails horribly, but the beauty of doing it live every day is regardless of how good or bad today's show is, there's still another one tomorrow. Once the scripts are done, then it's a matter of putting them into the teleprompter, which is my least favorite part of setting up for broadcast. Each of the 3 cameras has its own teleprompter, and then somebody's back here using this little jog wheel to control it. The teleprompter computer sends its signal out to this splitter. It's basically like each prompter is an external display, all showing the same things on that computer screen. Each camera has its own prompter to be read. Behind the desk, no matter which camera you're looking at, there's a prompter. The software we use for the teleprompter sucks. It's so buggy and has all these issues, and I hate it, but it's what we have. So I do script and teleprompter first because they suck the most, and then we move on to the fun stuff. The studio itself should look pretty familiar if you saw the video where I talked about how I built it, but now I want to show how it's all set up. First thing to remember is when we moved into this space last December, it was completely empty. And so now this set works great, but there's a few things that need to be done to make it TV ready. And the first one is lighting. So I'm going to turn off the studio lights and turn on the stage lights. On top of that, there's a few LEDs to turn on, and some accent lighting. This bulb right here is burnt out. I meant to buy one before I came in this morning, but I forgot, so I'll have one before we start our show tomorrow. And the last step for the studio is I use a MacBook to display things on these 2 monitors right here during the show. And that's it. Now the set is ready to go. There are 3 cameras. Each camera has a teleprompter. Turn each of them on. 1, 2, 3. I always try to make sure, oh my god, this is not like the most flattering light in this situation. Right now I look pretty orange because these are warm tungsten lights, not what I would have chosen. To help make it look better on screen, We always make sure that each camera is white balanced and set exactly the same. Got this guy, stool, and then basically each camera uses this white disc as a reference point for what white should look like under this lighting, and that gets rid of the orange and yellow tint. This is the basic layout of the control room. Teleprompter, graphics, lights, director, audio, live stream. There's also a program monitor in the control room on the wall, on the side of the studio, and up on a wall in a studio, along with outside the studio above the door. But these program monitors are really important so that people in the studio and on the air can see exactly what's being broadcast at any given time. We use wireless headsets during the show so that the director can talk to the camera operators and I can provide feedback and terrible jokes as necessary. Graphics computer is pretty simple. I try to sequence out any graphics we're using in the show. This might include things like intro videos or titles or squeezes. And then when it's time to play those things, they just get brought up full screen, and then whatever is on the screen pops up over here. The director's job, without a doubt, is the most stressful, but it's not really too bad. Everybody has a copy of the script to follow along with directions for that day. And the director has all of the inputs on this monitor with what's currently being broadcast on this monitor and uses this switcher to switch between them. Currently, this switcher only has 4 inputs. I'm working on getting another one that has more, but it's pretty simple. This is what's currently being broadcast, so if I switch that, it will change. And this is what's up next. So you pretty much have your current input, what you're going to next, and then this button will transition between them when you press it. So basically you're always looking where you're at plus one step ahead. Right next to the director is where audio is. This is obviously the main part of doing audio. We've got all of the mic inputs, graphic sound, music, sound effects. Right now for audio, I'm doing this old school thing where the mics are just hanging above the set. I have new lavalier mics coming in. I'm just trying these different ones to see what they sound like in the meantime. I tried wireless lavalier mics, but they did not work at all because the battery changing situation became a nightmare, and there was also a ton of interference. To take things up an extra notch, I've also added in a sampler that has all kinds of rim shot, dog barks, lasers, air horns. So you can make your own sick beats. This was important. They did not build this in when they built the studio, so there was no way to get all of this equipment into the studio. So we actually had to drill a hole straight through the wall so that all the cables could pass through on the other side. And then all of this information from the cameras, from these computers, from the switcher, from the audio, get fed into this Black Magic mini recorder, which acts as the input to this iMac that then streams via OBS over to YouTube every single day. So a big reason that I wanted to share that with you is because there aren't really any instruction manuals for this of how to set it up. Very few people understand what actually goes into producing a live multi-camera broadcast every day. I spent all of last winter break wiring up this studio and then all of last summer break building this new set behind me to get the whole studio functional so it looks as good as an actual TV studio would. Because it is an actual TV studio.